Hi, Elaine here. After the most recent presidential election, I was feeling disheartened with politics at a national level. In an attempt to keep sane, I began looking for people who were not elected into office to talk about how they are working to build and safekeep our communities. I wanted to talk about politics from the people. Now, with We Have Action, an indivisible group based in Arlington, Virginia, I'm bringing those conversations to you. Today, I'm talking with Lisa Finn, a local coordinator with Third Act. This is From the People. So Lisa, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate you doing this.
I just wanted to start with a very basic background question, which is, tell me about your life. What were you doing before you got involved in the activism you are involved with now?
Well, I kind of grew up sort of as a Republican down in North Carolina, conservative family. My dad was part of the Republican Party and the county chairperson, so he was very involved and actually listened to Rush Limbaugh. I want to say full disclosure on that, but I always wanted to do things. I always wanted to help people. I was in Girl Scouts, and then after college, I joined the Peace Corps, and just really environmentally, I was on a small island that could be flooded out at some point with the whole climate change, and so it kind of opened my eyes a bit on that. And then I get home and start listening to
Yeah.
NPR instead of Rush Limbaugh.
That's a cultural shift, yeah.
Which was it was a big cultural shift. It took me about a year of listening to NPR. I was like, oh, because I went to college as an engineer, so I didn't really have the liberal arts
Mm.
education that probably would have given me a little bit more background. So I was a math science person, so I basically you know, learned a lot on just listening to the Diane Rehm show, those old, Kojo Nambi show, they've all moved on, but those were kind of my founding people of what I listened to. And then, I'm raising a family, doing volunteer work, working for my sister-in-law. So just different odd jobs. I loved, you know, organizing. Was the team rep, the Girl Scout leader, the Odyssey of the Mind coach, all that stuff. And I was pretty good at it. I can write a good email. I can sort of see the big picture, organize. And then kids were moving on. Trump gets elected, and I realize, this is not good. One, how could he even have gotten elected? Was my kind of thinking. Was there's something wrong with this country if they could elect that kind of a person as the leader of our free
Yeah.
world. So something's happening. I mean, he has always been who he has been, but how did he get elected? And I really got worried and thought I need to do something. And by then I'm kind of, my kids are in college and they're affected by this whole Trump thing. And I think when I was growing up, I wasn't politically active in college. It was a kind of it was an okay time. The arc of justice was going up. It was, I'm a white person that had a big difference in how I grew up. And I acknowledge that. And, I'm thinking, oh, we're doing fine. We're getting, everything's going the right direction. And then, Trump gets elected, and I feel like we're not. And he actually kind of ripped the curtain off of actually what was really happening in our country that a lot of people didn't see. Of course, Black Lives Matter happened with George Floyd. And I feel like I got a big education about, you know, Black people in this country and how they have a very different kind of feeling about this country and how they navigate the world than I do. And it just kind of realized, oh, we've got lots of problems here, even before Trump, and Trump is not doing anything about them, and we're actually going
Mm.
backwards. And so, my daughter got involved in environmental stuff in college, and she ended up protesting against the Mountain Valley Pipeline. And I went out there to help her out. And it's like, hey, she called up and said, "Hey, Mom, I've got this thing. They're doing an action camp." And I'm like, "Okay, do they have, is there a bed? I'm not going to bring my own tent here." Which I did tend to, did some tent things younger, but it's like, that's I'm done with that. Um, and she said she showed me there's a bed, and I'm like, okay, I can do that, and actually hot water too, which was nice. And we went to this lovely camp out in the middle of nowhere, and in West Virginia, and I got sort of a lesson in how to do actions, how to there was street medic training, there was police liaison training, there was how to lock down to a piece of equipment, how to do this and that, and I'm like, wow, this is kind of opened up a whole another world, and the people that I met were wonderful. They were like, hey, we're working on this, and this is what we're doing, and then I met some older people, kind of like me. So I learned a lot at this camp. And then afterwards, we kind of kept in contact. And the older people was like, "Hey, there's this thing called Third Act. Would you be interested?" And I had no idea. I didn't know who Bill McKibben was. I was not a big like environmental historian. I didn't know anything about all that stuff. But I had a sense that, yeah, I think I need this. I need to be a part of a community that like this. And so since then, I've been working with Virginia. We work with the DC, Maryland, Virginia area. My first big action was in 2023 when we did this thing. So Third Act was all about against the banks, like the big four banks. They were funding fossil fuel
Mm,
projects, and because the older people had the money, they put the money in the bank. So it's like our money funding fossil
right.
fuel projects. So in 2023, nationwide, they did this big action against the banks, and we did one in DC. We had a 24-hour vigil. We had 50 rocking chairs. I mean, it was a big thing, and I was one of the planners for it. And it was like, I kind of like this. It gets me excited. It's a lot of work, but I really enjoy it. We worked with people from DC and Maryland. It was just kind of a great experience, exhausting, but I really kind of said, "Oh, I think I can. I like doing these. I like planning these things. I love bringing people in." And sort of my mantra and Third Act mantra is bring people in that have never done this before. Everybody's on their own activist timeline. Some people are like have never done anything. Some people have been doing things since the 60s. Some people are, just getting started and coming out to a curbside protest, and it's like, okay, how could we move them along to get them more educated and skilled up. So anyway, so that's sort of my little activist timeline.
Question, what year was the pipeline protests?
So it was a 10-year campaign, the pipeline. I was down there in 2020.
Okay.
I remember it because it was right during COVID. Like COVID had just hit. So I'll never forget that
Yeah.
week. Things were just all happening. It was in
Yeah.
March. We were hearing news. We were kind of this little oasis of camp. And then it's like, oh my God, we're going to go back to a different sort of life,
Yeah.
and that was the COVID thing. So that was 2020.
Were you active before then? Were you attending protests or anything like that?
My very first protest was the Women's March.
Okay.
And I went to the Women's March with my sister, and my kids went with their friends, and it's like I was kind of overwhelmed. I mean, of course, I wasn't prepared. I didn't have water. I thought, oh, I could just buy food there, and I can call people, and it's like, oh my God, there's so many people. You can't buy anything. I'm addicted to Diet Coke, so I was like, oh God, where's the Diet Coke? You know, my daughter had she had packed a little set because they were so strict about, oh my gosh, you have to have see-through backpacks. And
Yeah.
so we were just trying to be really careful about all that, and didn't pack anything. And we had our signs. We, made these great signs, although I've gotten so much better at making signs now. But me and my sister would go. And then throughout the Trump administration, the first time, there would be different protests, and I would go if my sister was in town. But if she wasn't, I didn't know anybody. So it's like I didn't want to go down by
Yeah.
myself, because and I wasn't really a part of a group. That changed, of course, when we had the Third Act and did the big protest in 2023.
I'd actually like to dig into that a little bit because it sounds like you kind of got involved because of your daughter and potentially your sister. And you mentioned earlier that that kind of shifted to being for you. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, my daughter was in she was in school at the time, and she was really focused on the Mountain Valley Pipeline. So I was kinda here in the DC area going, "Okay, well, I need to protest this stuff." My sister's in Charlottesville, so whenever she would come, I'm like, "Hey, we got this protest going, come on over, we'll go in." But if she didn't come in, then I was kind of like,
Yeah, it's hard showing up alone.
it's hard showing up alone." And I remember the very first time then it took until 2023 for me to really find my people in the DC, Maryland, Virginia area. I mean, we started working on it in 22, this big action, and that's when I started meeting people. And I remember the first time I'm going to an action that I'm kind of by myself and I'm like but then I'm meeting I see all these people that I know and it's like, "Oh my god, it's so much fun to go to an action and give people hugs and it's like, "Hey, nice to see you and nice to see you again," because I knew them and that's a big
Yeah,
thing to be able to do that and be with a group and a community that's going to do that.
yeah. So, I'm not quite sure how to phrase this, but I feel like there's so much other things that you could be doing with your time. Um, I feel like we've been programmed to kind of spend our lives kind of working towards retirement. And so a lot of people take that opportunity to retire, and yet you've kind of thrown yourself into another battle. Can you talk a little bit about why you made that decision?
I mean, it didn't quite happen all at once. It just sort of like, oh, I think I can do this. Really like these people, working with these people. There's this action that I really kind of enjoy working on. I love a 24-hour vigil. It sounds so cool. Rocking chairs. It all sounds cool. And then it's sort of gotten to where I just I try not to make it ever work, like feel like work. Like I do a newsletter and I never have a deadline because if it's like I have a deadline, then it's work to
Mhm.
me. It's like I can't that's not what I only do it because I love it, and that's a big difference for me. Like if somebody tells me to read a book, I have a hard time reading that book. It's like the teacher saying, "You need to read this book for the assignment." It's like,
Yeah.
"Oh
Yep.
god. Nobody tells me I would probably read it." I have to be careful to make sure it doesn't feel like work. And I have a lot of friends that don't do this and they complain about, what's happening in our country. But for me, to be able to do something, it kind of takes because we're watching the news all the time. It's
Yeah.
horrible. I mean, things are happening now that are really bad. I feel like we're going to be set back years. But when I work on things and when I talk to other people that are like-minded, I feel so much better, and it helps me to be not happier, but just in a better place. I feel like your frustrations come out in your working on
Yeah.
things.
Tell me a little bit about your work with Third Act.
So Third Act is a big organization nationwide, but a very small staff. It's mostly volunteers. So there's different groups in every state. We're in Virginia, and we have a lot of autonomy. We can do kind of whatever we want. Being, I mean, you know, certain, not quite whatever we want, but we focusing on democracy and environment, the kind of the two sort of pillars of Third Act. And being in Virginia, we've kind of taken on, the Mountain Valley Pipeline took an act of Congress to get that thing going. It almost got closed off, and now, of course, it's running. It's horrible, and they're trying to put up another station, to make it run faster. So and that's in Southwest Virginia and West Virginia. But then here in the DC area, there's the whole democracy thing going, which is I feel like it's all related.
Yes, absolutely.
And right now I feel like billionaires are making decisions and putting up data centers and ice camps. I mean, it's like it's sort of all related to the inequality in our country is happening and these billionaires are able to make decisions for us that are really only about them.
Yeah.
I mean, the definition of a corporation is to make money,
Yeah.
not to help our planet.
Yeah. So you're talking about this interconnectedness of all these issues, and I'm just wondering if you think that you bring a different perspective to this fight than someone like me who just hasn't been around as long?
It's hard to tell. I mean, because I see where our country's going. I think you guys see it even more, like, as a younger person. When I was growing up, I mean, democracy, I thought democracy was a very good thing, and we have a democracy, and I feel like young people these days don't think they have a democracy right now, and they really don't have a democracy. And that's a little bit different in how we all look at things. I'm kind of like, well, maybe we just have to work with the system, and some young people are like, maybe this system is broken and needs a reimagining, which I get that. So there's different perspectives, but I think we all have to sort of think outside the box when we're looking at what do we really want with this country. And I think young people can tell us a lot of good things about that.
Do you think that there's like an overarching, like, we might not agree, the generations may not agree on kind of the method at which we go about this, but do you think that there's an overarching goal that most people who are on the side of democracy are working towards?
Yeah, oh, definitely. There's a definite goal. I think, well, first get Trump out of the White House and stop the damage that is being done. I do believe in our right to vote, and voting can make a big difference. Although I think some young people might not think that so much.
It's hard to, with the voting,
Oh,
with the Supreme Court.
oh my gosh, yeah. I remember thinking when Trump was in office, like, okay, we can just take 4 years, we can do it, we can last him out, he'll leave. And then when Ruth Bader Ginsburg died, I really kind of got depressed, because as soon as that happened, I knew they were going to put somebody in, and I knew it was going to be really bad, because the Supreme Court, this is decades that we have to deal with unless we can get some reforms. And we're not going to get reforms until we get, a better Congress. And yeah, I also feel like the old people, the older people, we need to be out there. We need to be not playing it safe, because when we're out there, and I have been arrested a couple times, I will say, in a very planned event, nonviolent, always nonviolent, but we have to be on the front lines, because we're retired. We don't have much to lose. Younger people have families, they have jobs, they have, healthcare that they need to take care of. So we need to be stepping up. And I really do believe that there's a lot of older people out there that can step
Yeah.
up.
I think it's interesting that you're talking about the being arrested, because I know that for me, going to protest, it's always forefront of my mind, because, you know, I do need a
Yeah.
job. So I think that perfectly displays what you're talking about.
Yeah, and getting the numbers out. I mean, No Kings 3 was a big, trying to get as many folks out as possible who have never come out before. We did a protesting 101 class, because a lot of people think, oh, if I go to DC, I'm going to get arrested. It's like, no, it's kind of hard to get arrested in DC. And sometimes you're trying to get arrested, and they're like, yeah, we'll just leave you at the middle of the road. Couple of hours, you just sit there, it's like, okay. But people have to realize it is a safe way to, to be, and plus, if you have the numbers, it's always safety in numbers.
What would you say to people who are hesitant on getting involved?
Well, I would say that you have some choices. I mean, I'm not a lawyer, so I can't help out with immigration or ACLU or free speech or all that. I'm not a scientist. I can't do the research and do all that stuff. But what I can do, and what a lot of people can do, is get out there, get out in the street, start protesting, meet the other folks out there that are protesting, become part of a community. It's a really wonderful thing to be in a community. So can I tell you a little story real quick about,
Absolutely.
so I started this bridge, this really beautiful bridge. It's a stone bridge over the GW Parkway in June, No Kings 1. And it was me and my daughters. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I love this bridge. I've seen other people do bridges. I know that WOFA did a bunch of bridges. And it's
Yep.
like, okay, I can do this one bridge. It's right close to me. I'm just going to get out there and put a sign up, put a big banner up. And so we did a banner on each side. And then people started coming and people like, "Hey, who did that bridge?" And so I went to a meeting for a group of women, Red Wine and Blue, that had just started in Mount Vernon, and they're like, "Oh my God, we want to come and we want to do this." And so now we get at least 20 people every time. And from that bridge, we got a guy who came, and he's like, "Hey, I'm a sculptor. I can make a Trump head." And I said, "Okay, make your trumpet." So this is for No Kings 2. We helped organize the march from Memorial Bridge to DC, and so we had about 3,000 people, or maybe less. And we had this big trumpet, and it made all the news. It was kind of fun to have it. And so it was really popular. We brought it to the bridge. We made the little local newspaper. It must have been a slow news day, but the Mount Vernon Gazette. And then the next time he's like, "Hey, I have this other thing we can do. I could make more heads, and we can bring them to the No Kings 3." And so at that point we had a team of artists and sculptors helping him out making these heads out of paper mache and wire. And then we had a painting party. We had lots of art build days, lots of national attention. It was really great that our little community could do that, and be part of a national thing. So I'm very proud of that.
Can I just say, it sounds like you have had the experiences in your life, from Girl Scouts to being a mother to organizing, that has it's like the perfect experience for the time we're in now.
Yeah.
It's like your past experiences prepared you for the community building that's required.
And it is build a community. I mean, it really is. And some people are like, "Oh, it's all about the next protest. It's all about, like, what do we do next?" It's like, no. The number one thing for this kind of activism is build your community and take care of your community. That's number one. And then number two is to protest stuff. But you have to have that safe feeling in a community to be able to do that. And yeah, you're right. I think all my stuff helped that.
Is there anything else you want to add before we wrap this up?
Join a group that you feel really comfortable with and get to know them. Once you do that, then start thinking about how you can play a role in whatever group you're in. I think that's so important to bring communities, and that's how we form a movement. I mean, the No Kings, I feel like that was so smart to have these small protests in every city, in
Yeah.
every town, in every area of the country, because that kind of brought people together. Instead of saying, "Oh, well, you have to come to DC." A lot of people aren't going to come to DC, but they'll get out in their own little area and protest. And that's why we have this little bridge. It's like they might not go to DC, but they're going to come out to the bridge and they'll help out with different things. And that feels really good.
Yeah. It's really rooted at a smaller level, which can be more
Yeah.
impactful. Yeah.
Just get out there and find something that you feel comfortable with. That's my thing.
Well, thank you so much for talking with me.
Thank you. Thank you, Elaine. That was great.
Thanks for listening. If you like what you heard, please subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts to get our upcoming releases. If you would like to join We of Action, you can go to their website at www.wofava.org or follow them on their various social media links, which are also included in the show notes. You can follow me on Blue Sky at Elaine from Related. See you next time.